Take note that there are so many ways of producing charges. You can produce charges by friction, you can produce charges by contact, then you can produce charges by electrostatic induction. Now, this aspect that I talked about, which has to do with rubbing silk with glass that produces positive charges, we observe that this is by what? Friction, because we are rubbing the material vigorously, rubbing the material with silk, rubbing glass with silk, or rubbing a ebonite rod, charged ebonite rod with foil. You observe that negative charges are generated in that aspect. So whenever even when it comes to magnetism, let's say this is a magnet, for example. Now, let's say this is a magnet, for example. Now, and you now begin to spike, or you begin to rub the magnet with this kind of material, and you rub it. This material does not possess magnetism. It does not possess magnetic property before, but you now rub it against this material. What happens? You observe that this material will now possess some form of magnetic property, and that's called temporary magnetism is generated in that aspect. So that is what occurs in this aspect of ways of producing charges. So you can generate charges by friction. The other aspect is by contact. In this aspect of generating charges by contact, what actually occurs is you have a material that is charged. The material is already charged. Then you now rub a material that is not charged with a material that is charged. That means you bring a material that is charged close to a material that is not charged, or you bring it in contact with a material that is not charged. So let's say with these two now, you bring this one that is charged to this one that is not charged. Now let's say we have this one that is here now. You see this one here now. This one here now is charged, so it has plus and charges here. So what now happen now? You now brought it in contact with one that is not charged. Now this one that is not charged now tends to possess some form of charges, maybe negative at the other end. Now begins to possess some form of negative charges at the other end. You understand? Because this material that is here was brought in contact with this other material. This other material here, it was first of all on its own. It was not having charges. You observe that this one was just plus. Let me put it again. This one was just plus. Then this one was brought in contact with it. And this was what now occurs, because this one now began to have charges generated on it. And that's as a result of what? Ways of producing charges by what? By contact. When you produce charges by contact, this is what occurs. This one, there was no charge before. This one is a non-charged body. Then this one now is a charged body. You observe that the charged body now starts to possess charges that it never had before. And then in this electrostatic induction, you know what occurs here? What happens in electrostatic induction is the materials are not really brought in contact with each other. But the materials are not really brought in contact with each other, but rather you are inducing the material with charge. Now let's say this is one part. Now this one is positive. Now this one is plus. Then you now bring it. You see this one. They are not in contact, but rather you bring it a bit, maybe not so close to it, but you bring another material here. You observe that this one now does not possess any charge before. But from this now, you observe that because of the presence of this charged body, and after induction, you observe that this plus will now induce here with negative signs, then induce the opposite side with positive what? Signs. So by electrostatic induction, positive, negative, positive. You have positive, negative, positive. So if here is negative, what occurs? Here will be negative, then here will be positive, then here will be what? Negative. Negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. So you observe. Then the one that is inducing the charge, is called the inducing charge. The one that is inducing the charge is called what? Inducing what? Charge. So this one, remember, I said for the positive, it is usually a glass rod. But if here is going to be negative, what we are going to bring is what? An ebonite what? Rod. So if here is going to be positive, we are going to put a what? A glass rod. Then if here is going to be negative, we are going to have a what? An ebonite what? Rod. Like you always know, the one that induces positive charges is the glass rod. The one that induces negative charges is known as the what? The ebonite what? Rod. Take note of this. So how many ways do we have to produce charges? We produce charges by friction, we produce charges by contact, and we produce charges by electrostatic induction. Now take note, it is not electromagnetic induction, but rather it is electrostatic induction. It is not electromagnetic induction, but rather it is electrostatic induction. Contact, you bring a charged body with a non-charged body. Friction, maybe you rub different particles, materials together, for example glass and silk, or you rub ebonite rod and fork together. You observe that charges are generated in that aspect.